Have you guys ever wondered whether List Perfectly or Vendoo was faster at cross-listing? Well, today I did some experiments to find out. Hi guys, my name is Macy and I'm a full-time reseller. On this channel, I put out reselling content to help you succeed at your reselling business. If that sounds like something that interests you, hit subscribe down below and tap the bell so that you know next time I put out a new video. Today, I did a very interesting experiment to see whether List Perfectly or Vendoo was faster at cross-listing. And to do this, I did 3 different tests. I wanted to do a multitude of different tests because I know there are a couple of ways that you can go about cross-listing using these 2 sites. So if I just did it one way, I don't know if that would be as fair of a comparison as it could be. For each test, I listed 5 items and I cross-listed them onto Poshmark, eBay, and Mercari. The first test is just your basic listing test. I created a draft on List Perfectly, I created a draft on Vendoo, and then from there I cross-listed to the other 3 platforms. The second test involves using the copy feature or the duplicate feature, which involves copying a similar listing and then adjusting it to your new listing and then cross-listing. So a lot of the information is already in there for you, but some of it needs changed to match what your new listing is. And the third test is marketplace to marketplace cross-listing, which List Perfectly specifically has this feature. Vendoo does not, but there is a similar way of going about it. So for List Perfectly, you can list something on, say, eBay, and then directly from eBay you can cross-list onto Poshmark and Mercari. For Vendoo, you can create the listing on eBay, but then you have to import it into Vendoo in order to be able to cross-list it to Poshmark and Mercari. Another thing that I wanted to note is that this is just me personally listing items, and so if you were to perform the same experiment, you might have different results. Don't pay so much attention to how much time it takes me to list the 5 items, but rather pay attention to the differences in time between the different methods of cross-listing and between Vendoo cross-listing and List Perfectly cross-listing times. Do keep in mind that there is some bias here because I list regularly on Vendoo and I only got List Perfectly to run this experiment and I only had it for a month to play around with it. So I probably am used to listing on Vendoo and therefore I might be faster in some ways at listing on Vendoo than List Perfectly. So I'm going to show you guys some clips of me actually performing the test, and then at the end of each test I'm going to go over the results of the test with you. Alright, let's do it. Okay, can you see this? The time is 6:39, so at 6:40 we will start and I will list these items here. I have a few kids, pants, skirt, some jeans, and a dress. And then I have List Perfectly up over here, so as soon as it turns 6:40 I will start listing and then we'll see how long it takes. Okay, so at the end it took 45 minutes and 29 seconds to list 5 items on 3 different platforms each. It's time for the second test. I have my pile of items I want to list here. It's 5 more items, and this time, instead of just listing directly in List Perfectly, I'm going to use the copy feature in List Perfectly to copy a listing that's already in List Perfectly and then adjust it to match whatever I'm trying to list. And hopefully that will be faster and we'll see how long it takes to list these 5 items. Okay, so that was it for the second test, and for those 5 items it took me 38 minutes and 8 seconds, so it was 7 minutes and 21 seconds faster than listing completely just on List Perfectly without using the copy feature and utilizing prior listings. So that's good. It's still not very fast, so we're going to move on to the third test, which is listing items on eBay first and then cross-listing using List Perfectly onto Mercari and Poshmark. We're going to see how long that takes in total. Okay, it's time for test number 3. I have 5 more items here. I'm going to list on eBay first and then cross-list using List Perfectly straight from eBay to the other platforms and completely bypass the List Perfectly catalog. So we will see how long that takes. Okay, so that was interesting. So for the third test, which was listing on eBay first and then cross-listing from there using List Perfectly to Mercari and Poshmark, it took 37 minutes and 27 seconds for 5 listings. That is 8 minutes and 2 seconds faster than the first test and 41 seconds faster than the second test. So pretty much the second test and the third test both ways take about the same amount of time regardless of which one you do. So if you want to list directly into List Perfectly and cross post from there to whatever sites you want to sell on, or if you want to start with one of the platforms and then cross post from one of the platforms to another one, it takes about the same amount of time. So that is very interesting, and I am excited to see how this fares against Vendoo. I'm filming these clips a little bit out of order. I did some of them a little while ago. All the List Perfectly ones are already done because I only had that subscription for a limited amount of time. I regularly use Vendoo, so I wanted to make sure that I got List Perfectly done while I had the subscription, and now I'm doing the Vendoo ones. So my desk might look a little bit different because I've cleaned it up since I last did this. I've got 5 items here that I'm just going to list on Vendoo, starting with straight drafts and listing on eBay, Posh, and Mercari, see how long it takes for 5 items. Okay, so I did 5 more listings and it took me 33 minutes and 16 seconds to do those 5 listings on Vendoo, just starting with blank drafts. Next, I'll show you guys the clip I already took of me doing 5 listings on Vendoo using the copy feature. I'm going to list these 5 items on Vendoo and I'm going to use the copy feature and see how that does. Okay, so that took 37 minutes and 6 seconds in total to list those 5 items using the copy feature on Vendoo. It would have been 33 minutes and 36 seconds if I did not mess up the photos on the pants. So I'm not sure if I should include that time or not, because it did take 3.5 minutes to fix the pictures since I messed them up. It might have been faster actually for me to just delist the items and relist. I think that would have been faster than me going into each site and fixing the pictures. So that's a user error there. I'm not sure I want to count against Vendoo. I think the real time it took was 33 minutes and 36 seconds. Okay, so I got my last 5 items that I'm going to list, and this time we're going to do marketplace to marketplace. But it doesn't actually work like that because Vendoo doesn't have marketplace to marketplace. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the listing on eBay, and then we're going to import it into Vendoo and then cross-list from Vendoo to the other 2 platforms, starting with that eBay import. So we'll see how it goes. It's the equivalent that I can do to compare versus List Perfectly's marketplace to marketplace. And I hope that it goes really quick for Vendoo so that I can be done with these 5 items. Faster the better. We'll see how it goes. I finished. Unfortunately, it was not faster than any of the other tests for Vendoo. It took 40 minutes and 9 seconds to do those 5 listings by starting on another site, eBay, and then importing the listing from eBay and then cross-listing Poshmark and Mercari. The actual process of cross-listing didn't take very long. It was just the time to actually get the item imported and the time to build the listing on eBay that took quite a while. Of course, that might be my bad for just not being practiced in building listings on eBay, because I haven't done it in a while. I've been building them on Vendoo usually, so that's just how I'm used to doing it. So that definitely could play a role into why this was slower for me. So this was interesting. Let's talk for a second in a place that's not so awkward where I'm like bending over like this. Okay, let's talk about the data. I got my notebook here. The first test, we started with List Perfectly, and we'll call the first test the blank draft test because we just started with a blank draft and then we cross-listed to Poshmark, eBay, and Mercari. So for List Perfectly, it took 45 minutes and 29 seconds originally. However, I did something with this test that I should not have. I filled in the item specifics underneath the description, which I did not realize until after I was done that those item specifics get put into the description. So since I had already completed my description how I wanted it to look, and it didn't need any additional item specifics, I could have just skipped that whole area, including the condition description. So if we remove the 4 minutes and 45 seconds that it took me to fill out the item specifics and the condition statement for all 5 listings, that brings the time for the first test down to 40 minutes and 44 seconds. To compare, for the first test on Vendoo, same concept, start with a blank draft, Crosslist to Poshmark, eBay, and Mercari. It took 33 minutes and 16 seconds originally. Now, there's 2 changes I want to make to this number. The first is for List Perfectly, it took me a different amount of time to create the title and description for each listing than it did for Vendoo. I looked at the time it took me to make the titles and descriptions on List Perfectly, and that took 11 minutes and 35 seconds. And then I looked at how long it took on Vendoo, and it took 13 minutes and 42 seconds. So what I'm going to do is take that time difference and subtract it from Vendoo so that it is as if I took the exact same amount of time to build titles and descriptions on Vendoo as I did on List Perfectly. The second change is I forgot to rearrange my photos for Vendoo. For all the other tests, I rearranged my photos so that they were in the proper order that I want them to be on the listing. So I forgot to do that. It takes about 10 seconds per listing. I looked at the time it took me for List Perfectly, and so I'm just going to add 50 seconds to be as if I have rearranged the photos for Vendoo. So with those 2 adjustments, deducting 2 minutes and 7 seconds for the title and description difference, and adding 50 seconds for the lack of rearranging photos, that brings my time to 31 minutes and 59 seconds. So the winner, comparing those 2, would definitely be Vendoo in this case, as it took me around 9 minutes less time to do Vendoo. The second test involved using the copy and duplicate feature on Vendoo and List Perfectly in order to build listings. For List Perfectly, test 2 took 38 minutes and 8 seconds. Once again, I'm going to make an adjustment to this time. I am going to remove the amount of time it took me to fill in those item specifics because it was unnecessary and redundant. Whenever I removed that time, it took 1 minute and 53 seconds for the 5 listings to do that. That brings my time for test 2 to 36 minutes and 15 seconds. This is quite a bit faster than it took for test 1. So using the duplicate feature on List Perfectly, at least in my experience, is faster than just starting with blank drafts. On Vendoo for the second test, it took 33 minutes and 36 seconds, and that is after I removed the couple of minutes that it took me to rearrange photos for one of the items that I completely messed up the photos with. I didn't make a mistake like that on List Perfectly, so it wouldn't have been a fair comparison to include the 3 minutes and 30 seconds that it took me to fix that mistake. There are some more adjustments I want to make to this time, and that is to adjust for the amount of time it took me to make titles and descriptions on List Perfectly versus Vendoo. Once again, there was a time difference there. It took me 1 minute and 8 seconds more time to list on Vendoo than it did List Perfectly just looking at the title and description. So I am going to deduct that 1 minute and 8 seconds, which brings my total time for test 2 to 32 minutes and 28 seconds, which is a little bit slower than test 1, but very close together in time. There are less than 30 seconds difference between those 2. So the winner for test 2 using the copy and duplicate feature is Vendoo. Vendoo was around 4 minutes faster than List Perfectly for this test. Sorry, my camera ran out of memory there, but we're back. Let's go over test 3, which is marketplace to marketplace cross-listing. For List Perfectly, it took 37 minutes and 27 seconds in order to cross-list using the marketplace to marketplace method I do not have any adjustments there for item specifics because I did not use the list perfectly form in order to create these listings, so I didn't fill out the item specifics like I did for the other two tests. For Vendoo, I listed on eBay and then I imported into Vendoo and cross-listed to Poshmark and Mercari from there. And that took 40 minutes and 9 seconds. And once again, I do have a time adjustment here for the difference in title and description time on List Perfectly versus the time it took me to create the title and description on Vendoo. And that was a 35-second time difference. So I'm going to deduct that 35 seconds of time from my original time, which brings my Vendoo test 3 time to 39 minutes and 34 seconds. So the winner of test 3 was List Perfectly, coming in a bit under 2 minutes faster than Vendoo in this case. Okay, so I have a few interesting notes here. One of the most fascinating parts of this experiment to me was just to see which way of cross-listing was actually the fastest within each software themselves. So let's talk about which way was the fastest for cross-listing for List Perfectly. Based on this experiment, it was test 2, 36 minutes and 15 seconds. What about the fastest way to cross-list on Vendoo? For Vendoo, it was test number 1, listing starting with a blank draft on Vendoo. Well, how about the fastest time overall when you look at all the tests? The winner there once again was Vendoo with the blank draft test number 1. It took 31 minutes and 59 seconds in order to cross-list 5 items using that method. And the slowest time overall was List Perfectly blank draft test number 1 at 40 minutes and 44 seconds. Kind of funny that both the fastest and the slowest test were the same one, number 1. I hope that you guys enjoyed that experiment. Let me know down below if you've ever tried cross-listing in a couple of different ways on either List Perfectly or Vendoo, and which way you have found was the fastest way to cross-list using these sites. I would love to know your experience there. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a like down below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. I put out new reselling content every single week. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!